All right, so let's talk about something we all use every single day without even thinking. Water.
It's true. We take it for granted, don't we?
Totally. But behind that simple act of turning on the tap, there's a whole lot going on and a whole lot of skilled people making sure that water is safe to drink. That's what we're diving into today. The role of water treatment systems operators.
Definitely not a job for the faint of heart.
Right. And when I say a lot going on, I mean it. This role catcher guide was eye-opening. It's not just about making water look clean, it's got to be safe for everything. Drinking, sure, but also irrigation, even the water that goes into bottling plants and food production.
Absolutely. And that's something a lot of people don't realize, the sheer scope of what water treatment impacts. Every sip we take, every shower, the food on our table, it all comes back to these guys.
It's a huge responsibility. It's like they're running this whole hidden world behind the scenes. And speaking of hidden, I was struck by how much the field has changed, how it's not your grandparents' water treatment plant anymore.
Oh, for sure. Technology has completely revolutionized things. We're talking high-tech filtration systems, UV disinfection to get rid of those nasty microbes, even something called reverse osmosis.
Okay, so reverse osmosis. That sounds vaguely familiar from high school biology, but I'm not sure I could explain it.
Well, think of regular osmosis as water moving around naturally. Reverse osmosis is kind of like flipping the script. You use pressure to force water through a special membrane that acts like this super fine filter, so you're basically trapping all the contaminants and only clean water gets through.
Huh.
Really incredible stuff.
So there's some serious science involved here. And speaking of science, when I was reading through this guide, I was blown away by the range of skills it mentions. Like, yeah, you'd expect some technical stuff, but get this. Chemistry is a big one, like
Yeah.
67% of the job. Then you've got biology at 59%, even public safety and security at 59%. Public safety at a water treatment plant, that wasn't on my bingo card.
It makes sense when you think about it. I mean, these plants often deal with chemicals, some of which can be dangerous. So security is a huge deal, both to make sure the water isn't compromised and to protect everyone who works there. These operators have to be ready for anything.
So it's not just about turning valves and making sure the water's flowing. It's about really understanding the science behind it all. And when it comes to biology, I'm guessing it's more than just knowing the difference between like bacteria and viruses,
Yeah,
right?
you got it. We're talking about a whole ecosystem in the water. A good water treatment systems operator needs to know how all these tiny organisms interact, how to spot anything that could cause problems, and how to deal with it without messing up the natural balance. It's like detective work in a way, always analyzing and making sure the water is biologically safe.
That's really fascinating. So this is definitely not your typical 9 to 5 job. What does a career path in this field even look like? If someone's listening and thinking, hey, this sounds pretty cool, where do they even start?
Well, actually, there's a lot of room for growth. Usually, someone would start in an entry-level position, maybe working with more experienced operators, learning the ropes. As they gain experience, they can move up, take on more responsibility. You can go from managing a small part of the treatment process to overseeing a whole plant, training new hires, even leading teams.
And this role catcher guide I keep mentioning, it talks about certifications that can give you a leg up. Things like a certified water treatment operator, a CWTO, or even a certified environmental operator, a CEO. Those sound pretty official. What's the benefit of getting certified like that?
It's a way to show you're serious about the field. Think of it like it's one thing to say you can do the job, but having a certification says you're an expert. You've gone deeper, you understand the best practices, and employers definitely take notice. It can open doors to better positions and, yeah, usually a better salary too.
So there's a path for advancement if you're willing to put in the work. What about getting started? What kind of education does someone need to break into this field?
That's where it gets interesting because a degree can help, for sure, something in environmental science or chemistry. But it's not always a deal breaker. Experience is so important in this field. On-the-job training is really valuable. Some water treatment system operators, they work their way up, started with an apprenticeship or an entry-level role.
That's awesome to hear. Means there are different ways into this field. But let's be honest, this guy doesn't shy away from the downsides either. I mean, physically demanding, potentially hazardous environment, that's got to be tough.
Yeah, it's definitely not a walk in the park, and it's important for anyone interested to understand that. It can be physically demanding, on your feet a lot, working with heavy equipment, sometimes out in the elements. And yeah, there are risks involved, dealing with chemicals and potentially contaminated water. There are a lot of safety procedures in place for a reason.
Sounds like you really need to be comfortable with a certain level of risk, but also have that strong sense of responsibility knowing that, well, people's health is in your hands, literally.
Exactly. You have to be the kind of person who is detail-oriented, really cares about safety, and isn't afraid of hard work. But it can be incredibly rewarding for the right person.
So even with the challenges, there's a sense of purpose that comes with it, knowing you're making a difference. And let's not forget, job security is a big deal these days, and this field, it sounds like those jobs are in high demand. Plus, the salary potential isn't too shabby either.
You're right about all of that. But honestly, it goes beyond the practical stuff. There's real fulfillment knowing that you're playing a vital role in your community. Clean water is essential, and these are the people on the front lines making sure it's safe, that it's there when people need it.
It really is. It's easy to forget about, where our water comes from until there's a problem.
Exactly. And then it's like, whoa, wait a minute. This is important.
Totally. So for our listeners out there who might be, thinking about this career path, maybe they're intrigued, what would you say is like the most important takeaway for them today?
Hmm, that's a good question. I think for me, it's really about realizing that something we take for granted, like just turning on the tap, it actually relies on this whole team of people, these skilled professionals. Water treatment systems operators, they're like the unsung heroes of public health, right? And their work is only becoming more important as we deal with things like aging infrastructure, new contaminants, all that. It's a field that deserves way more attention, that's for sure.
I like that. Unsung heroes. That's a good way to put it. So for anyone listening who wants to learn more, to dig a little deeper, where should they go?
Well, this RoleCatcher guide we've been talking about, it's a great place to start. They even have a bunch of other resources listed if you want to go even further. Like there's the Occupational Outlook Handbook that's got more detail about the career path itself, salaries, how many jobs are out there. And if you really want to get into it, there are professional organizations, like the Water Environment Federation, the International Water Association. They're great for networking, finding mentors, staying up to date on the latest technology, all of that.
It's amazing how much information is out there if you know where to look.
It really is.
Well, on that note, I think I'm going to go pour myself a glass of water after all this talk about clean water.
Sounds like a plan. Cheers to clean water and the people who make it happen.
Absolutely. And to all our listeners, next time you take a sip of that clean, refreshing water, take a moment to think about the journey it took to get there and the skilled people who made it possible. It's a career that often goes unnoticed, but is absolutely essential to keeping our communities healthy and thriving. Until next time, thanks for joining us on this deep dive.